A long time ago, I wrote an essay about animation and why it is not only a medium that should be taken more seriously by, well, everybody, but something that should be more diverse in terms of genre, more so in America where animation is either a comedy, a family movie, a kids movie, or all the above. However, with events like the anime boom in the late 90s with things like Ninja Scroll, Perfect Blue, and Ghost in the Shell, and the rise of more adult American cartoons like Duckman and The Simpsons, and in more recent years with shows like Attack on Titan, Death Note, and High School of the Dead, I firmly believe that the West is finally starting to warm up to animation as an art form. Animation has come far, but still has a few ways to go, especially in America, where the only theatrical releases I see are either family movies or, you guessed it, kids movies. Very rarely do you get things like Primal by Genndy Tartakovsky, who's worked in the animation industry for about 20 years, in which his animation showcased some of the best action scenes that I've seen in recent memory. But that's it. Feel free to list some animated action cartoons that have been made recently, but I haven't seen any. The only thing that I can recall was that one Joss Whedon animated movie called Titan AD, which flopped so hard that I don't even think the studio ever contacted him for a movie ever again. Going back to Primal, I don't even think Primal was nominated for any kind of award. I didn't see any awards outlets covering it. The closest thing I saw was IndieWire giving it an A-. But the entire purpose of me making this little video and writing this little essay is more so to uplift these animators and praise them, because really they come out of art school ready to explore their ideas only to be woefully disappointed by the fact that they're making the same family or kids movie every single year, instead of being allowed and given the reins to make whatever project they would like. Instead of exploring different genres of art and different genres of animation, such as action, mystery, drama, etc., they're being used on the same kids movie. And I keep making fun of those kids movies, but I know everyone's tired of seeing them. These animators would much rather work on something new or different rather than the same thing every year. One of the greatest animation directors of all time, Shinichiro Watanabe, was given the free reins to make whatever TV show he wanted. So he went ahead and created this cool, nifty neo-space western called Cowboy Bebop. And then a few years later, he made a hip-hop style Edo period drama called Samurai Champloo. See what happens when people are given the free rein to make whatever they want? They make classics. Now granted, not everything's going to be a success. Not everything's going to be a SpongeBob or even a Rugrats. But it'll be a unique piece of animation that will stand out and it'll stand the test of time and made correctly. Expression is extremely key in art, especially animation, where things can get very samey over a short period of time. Allow for some auteurs to be given the reins on a TV show or even in control of a movie. Allow for some creative expression in the animation industry instead of it being eclipsed by live action and TV shows, which interestingly, despite costing a lot more, are given far more creative freedom to make whatever show they want, allowing the showrunners to go crazy whatever batshit premise that they come up with, as long as it's live action. I know I've been saying this, but this is really just one big long decry/rant against executives who don't allow animators to make whatever they want. And hopefully the likelihood of an executive watching this is high, but of course it isn't. But hopefully somebody could send this video to someone up at DreamWorks or Disney or whoever, and tell them to make something new and heavily marketable, but sources. Although a part of me still thinks that people that run the Academy and the Oscars are still those kinds of people that still scoff at animation, viewing it as something childish and for kids. Even though films like Heavy Metal the Movie, which is based on Heavy Metal magazine, came out in 1963 featuring very, very, very adult imagery. Not to mention Fritz the Cat, which came out in 1972, which was the first X-rated American-made animation. Really anything by Ralph Bakshi, if we're being real. On top of that, you have things like Fire and Ice, which came out in 83, which featured very gory, violent stuff, but very unique and striking nonetheless. So that whole idea of animation for kids really shouldn't even be in the older generation. Although I will admit a lot of those films were not as prominent and heavily marketed as stuff like, say, G.I. Joe or He-Man, which was directly aimed at kids. Not to mention, animation can incorporate a broad range of styles, from very, very proudly and bashfully realistic to the outright cartoonish and sleek. not to mention pure exaggeration in various other styles. It's art, basically, which is why I don't understand why people can't take it seriously. But I have a few theories based off of history and my own personal assumptions. One, a lot of these people that handle these outlets like the Oscars and the Annie Awards and things like that, they're very old. In fact, they're in their 60s. So they came up in respective eras where cartoons were simply for kids and only for kids. In the 1980s, cartoons were heavily, and I'm talking super heavily, aimed at kids. Literally, cartoons would be made based off of toys. So that stigma really kind of peaked in the 80s, even though there was some very adult stuff coming out of the 80s, such as Fire and Ice, and I think another Ralph Bakshi film that I can't name.